Hey, it's Ben, and this is Drambo by BeepStreet. This video is going to talk about a MIDI rack that basically acts as an arpeggiator per MIDI voice that you play in, or key that you play. You can download it from Patch Storage. It's called Separate Voices, or per voice. But it's really fun. It's pretty simple. But I'll show you how it works and what you can do with it, and then I'll go through like how it's built, if you care to watch that. So at its very simplest, it's going to let you play like a chord in and actually hear every note of the chord. So I'm playing with a MIDI keyboard. And it's pretty easy to get it into sync. It's actually going to play off each key, so like you'll hear me playing. And you can get things to kind of like bounce around. So it's 6 here, or actually like 8 different arpeggiators. Really easy to do chords. And you can get those like sort of like strummy sounding almost chords. Or have things not really sound all together as they bounce around. But then what's really fun is you can mess with the like timing or rhythm, timing for each individual MIDI voice that you play. So let's just have this one go a little bit faster. And you could have like one voice of the arpeggiator go up 2 octaves or 3 octaves even. And you'll hear that play in. So you can get these kind of weird rhythms going. And then each arpeggiator that I'm playing with, I'm going to bring this down to 4 so it's a little bit easier to like scroll back and forth. Also comes with a gate sequencer, so you can actually change it from just hitting on like every pulse of the arpeggiator to a little bit more nuanced rhythms. And I'll kind of take these all down and we'll bring them in one by one. Okay, so like playing this one first, so it could just be like, and then we'll bring in that second voice. You could change the length of a sequence so you can get polymeter, I guess. And it's polyrhythms and polymeter because you can change the timing, the speed of each sequence / arpeggiator, and then also the actual rhythm that's playing. So we'll add in another one. So again, it's just an arpeggiator and sequencer pair per voice, and that lets you get some cool polyrhythms, patterns that can change. And it's also easy to play things out of time accidentally. So it's a MIDI rack. It's going to go before your MIDI to CV module, and then you can just place your instrument or modules that you're going to play after, or you can use this as just a MIDI sequencer and place a MIDI output afterwards, and that will send out to a hardware device, or if you're using it as AUV3, you can send it to other apps easily. So when you open up the, whatever this is, the rack, I've named the preset for me as flat, but it's just going to be like straight. Every arpeggiator is going to be set to like 1 beat sync. It's going to be going at a rate of 1. gate length is going to be something like 20, or a short gate length. And the sequencer is going to have 8 steps. And then you can change all of this. In terms of controls, there's not too much. It's just an arpeggiator and a gate sequencer for each voice. And then you can set how many MIDI voices, or how many of these voices are active. So you could just use one, and then every note you play, it's just going to send in a different note to this arpeggiator. You set it to 2. You're just using these 2 arpeggiators, or voices, and 3 on is never going to be active. And you can like consolidate, compact, whatever, each section, easy enough. So if you're just using a couple of the voices, you can fold them down if you want to. And this actually isn't even visible in the compacted rack. Anyways, if you open it up, you can add in some other cool things. So I've got like a little README here. You can read that. The sequencer reset, if you were messing around with like one timing, and then especially if like your steps get out of whack. So now they're on, like, you see they're on different steps of the sequence. If you wanted to go back to 8, now things won't like start on time if you had different like rhythms in here. It won't start in time when you actually like hit the notes in. So the reset button is just going to bring all of the sequencers back to the first beat throughout the whole thing. Just sort of, it's a reset. That's what it does. Now it gets kind of fun, or more interesting. You can add in all sorts of other stuff. So if you wanted to, you could add, before the arpeggiator, you could add in a chord module. So I'm just going to play one note, but now it's taking the note that I play, it's creating a MIDI note, and then a chord off of that MIDI note, and that's being sent into the arpeggiator. And then the arpeggiator is driving the gate sequencer, and then the MIDI notes are being sent to the MIDI note generator. And then all of the final MIDI note generator is what is being sent to the MIDI mixer. And then the mixer combines all of the MIDI, and that's what's sent out. So it doesn't just have to be one note that you're playing in. You can create chords. Let me do that again on this one. So I'm just holding down 2 notes, but it's creating this nice little pattern. And let's change the timing a little bit. So it's going to be out of beat a little bit. So now we get this nice polyrhythm. Maybe we want to just put this a little bit off beat so we can go into our MIDI racks or MIDI modules. You've got the humanize. So let's change the offset a little bit. So now each beat of this arpeggiator is a little bit offset, and that's what's going into the gate sequencer. So that's kind of fun. Now you have to like take things apart a little bit more, but you can also add modules after like the final MIDI note to affect the gate sequence that's being sent out. So we could do like a chord, and then you'll have to go over here, excuse me, and pick out which one do you want to change. So I think it's this one. Take that away, and then we'll put in that chord. So now we're hearing chords that are being generated off of this arpeggiator and gate velocity sequencer. And what's fun, or just another kind of fun thing, because you have the gate velocity sequencer, you can sequence in velocity. And then if your patch is responding to velocity, either in amplitude or like I'm modulating the FM operator feedback, you're going to hear that as well. I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. I've been enjoying just playing with different rhythms. And again, you can use it within Drambo, or you can send it out with a MIDI output module. So now I'll just briefly talk about how it works, and you can stop watching if you want to. So I'm going to open it back up. And this is how it will download. So it'll be set to 4 voices, 4 active voices. And yeah, okay. So when you unfold it, for each voice, I'll just talk about each voice, or one voice, because it's just duplicated. But what it's doing is taking MIDI that comes into the rack, it's being converted to CV. And then it uses actually 2 voice selectors. And what a voice selector does is just takes one voice that's being sent in CV. Often you'd use this to take like one voice of your audio signal and then affect just that one voice, maybe to be recombined, because everything's happening behind the scene. You have a MIDI to CV module, there's 4 voices. So, if you had an amp envelope, there's really 4 amp envelopes, because you have 4-note polyphony or 4-voice polyphony. Anyways, voice selector is taking the pitch from the MIDI to CV module, and then it's also taking the gate. So it's really like taking apart the CV signal, and breaking it into different voices. So then what happens is you have a MIDI note generator. It's going to take the pitch just from this voice selector, so the pitch from one voice, and then the gate from one voice, turn it back into MIDI, and then that is routed into like that voice's arpeggiator, just as a MIDI signal. So then it goes back to MIDI to CV, because what we want to do is use the arpeggiator rhythm, or just like the straight running tempo from the arpeggiator. We're going to drive the gate velocity sequencer with the clock. So we need to convert the MIDI arpeggiator back into CV. And then finally, the MIDI note generator here is getting its gate signal from the gate and velocity sequencer, and then it's just getting its pitch from this MIDI to CV, which is coming through from the voice. So that's just duplicated 8 times, so that you can have 8 voices running if you want to. The final MIDI note generator in each voice is being routed into a MIDI mixer over here. And then that is sent out of the MIDI rack. And that's how it works. So again, if you wanted to add anything, you just need to make sure, like add any other MIDI modules or affect the gate signals that are being sent, or pitch, whatever. All you need to do is make sure that the final MIDI is going through some MIDI note generator, and that it's also being sent into the mixer. And it doesn't have to be a MIDI note generator like the last one, but you need to have your signal converted into MIDI, and then it needs to be combined in the MIDI mixer to be sent out. So that's how it works. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment here, or leave a comment in the patch storage. If you have any ideas on how this could be made better, or if you create like an extension of this, be sure to share it, put it on patch storage so other people can enjoy your work. That's all. Have fun.